Well, I think there's two things. The first is the Chinese have found a way to use capitalism against us. And what I mean by that is the ability to attract investment into entities that are deeply linked to the state. That military commercial fusion that exists in China is a concept that we don't have in this country. We have contractors that do defense work, but there is no distinction in China between advancements in technology, biomedicine, whatever it might be, and the interests of the state.
Well, you just have Marco Rubio there saying that the military industrial complex in the United States isn't one giant financial endeavor and that it's not driven by money. But a quick overview of the facts points to some other realities. For example, every day, the Department of Defense posts new contracts on its website, new contracts with private corporations. The current Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, is a former board member of the corporation Raytheon. And in addition to that, Lloyd Austin, he has owned an investment firm that bought up smaller defense contractors and corporations that did business with the Pentagon and with the military. And recently, we've had statements from the U.S. Space Force basically confirming their deep connections with the private sector and with corporations in the United States.
From my perspective, what's so exciting to the Space Force and the space acquisition community about all of this commercial innovation and these commercial technologies are that we can use those to maintain our technology lead and to deter conflict with our competitor. And I will tell you, I have never in my 25 years seen the department move so much money so fast towards priority things that have been identified through this construct that the secretary laid out.
For example, when it comes to members of Congress, lawmakers who craft national policy, and a lot of them have defense stocks. They are heavily invested in corporations that financially benefit from military operations and the Pentagon and its operations around the world. And this is not even a new thing. Let's recall that in 1961, Dwight Eisenhower, who was the U.S. president, warned about the military-industrial complex and the cooperation and unwarranted influence of military corporations. Back in 1961, this is the president of the United States at that time.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes.
So when Marco Rubio points to the United States and says that the huge cooperation between the government and the private sector when it comes to military matters is an understandable example of the free market and our American system working quite well, and then he points to China and says that, it's completely unacceptable and the government there is simply some kind of military dictatorship, he really needs to look himself in the mirror. I mean, the double standards are pretty obvious to anyone, and the nature of the militaristic U.S. economy and the way it functions and the way the U.S. economy is very much dependent on war and military manufacturing, and how the U.S. government and the military corporations walk in lockstep and coordinate their activities. That's obvious to the whole world, and it should be obvious to Marco Rubio.